Hi, my name is Kyle Jensen. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurial Programs here at the Yale School of Management, and I really appreciate you joining us today for this webinar on entrepreneurship at the School of Management, which, as you may know, is a growing area for the school. I am joined today by Bridget Fair and Jonas Clark. Bridget is the co-leader of the Entrepreneurship Club, and Jonas is the co-founder of A&J, a startup here that I'll tell you more about later. And both of them are MBAs in the class of 2015, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. The purpose of the webinar today is to provide us a chance to tell you about the growing program in entrepreneurship here at the School of Management, and for me personally to give me a chance to introduce myself to you. I'm one of the newest faculty persons here at Yale SOM. And the day this hour will look roughly as follows. We'll spend 15 minutes. That's mostly me opining as to what we're doing here at the school. And then we'll have another 15 minutes in discussion with Bridget and Jonas. And then we'll have 30 minutes during which you can ask us questions, and we will all discuss those together. If you're viewing this online, you'll notice at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side, there's a button that allows you to enter a question in text. You can just type in a question there. And I have a screen here just to my left that contains those questions. And so when we reach that point, I will page through them, and we'll pick some of the best ones, and we'll all discuss them together, and it should be a fantastic time. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing at the School of Management in the area of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship has never been healthier at Yale. We have more students now creating businesses, nonprofits, other initiatives than we ever have before, right? It is something that the students very much want to do. No one wants to be Jack Welch. Everyone wants to be Elon Musk. And so we have a huge array of resources around campus to support students in those goals. So for example, the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute, Center for Business and the Environment, Innovate Health, all these kinds of initiatives around campus that allow students to pursue their entrepreneurial endeavors and feel well supported. Now, what we have lacked is a large curriculum in the area. Right? So what we have is excellent. So for example, we have relatively few courses in entrepreneurship, but those that we do have, like David Cromwell's course in venture capital, are fantastic. In fact, David's course is, if you're a SOM alum, you know that we have this bidding system where you bid on, you use points to bid on the classes that you want to get into. I think the average course is something like 70 points to get into. David's course is 450 or something. So you essentially have to use all your points. So it's fantastic. This is a kind of long-winded way of saying that we have very few amazing courses, very few courses in entrepreneurship, and those that we have are amazing. We'd like to have more. So if you go to a university like some of our peer institutions like MIT, Stanford, you'll find there's 40 courses in entrepreneurship. Now, Yale doesn't really need 40, but we need 10. We need more, and students would like to see more, right? More opportunities for the 4-credit scholarly study of entrepreneurship within the classroom. And so the administration realized this some time ago and decided this is what we're going to do. And I am fortunate enough to be leading that effort. And I can tell you a little bit more about the other things we're working on as well that are kind of part of my new life here. In terms of the curricular piece, we're expanding it greatly. We have 7 new courses in entrepreneurship this year. They are all fantastic. We have a unique perspective on what those should look like to make them special for Yale. I think what's incredible about these courses is that they are, with very rare exception, open to the whole of the Yale campus. So these courses have Yale College students in them. We have divinity school students. We have medical school, music, you name it, in the classroom with students at the School of Management here in this beautiful Evans Hall. It's a chance for us to get the rest of campus to come here and learn about entrepreneurship and interact with the MBA students, because entrepreneurship is necessarily one of those areas that is interdisciplinary, right? So it's rare that we have a startup that comes out of here with 5 MBAs on it, right? Usually there's a handful of MBAs and there's co-founders from around the rest of Yale. And I feel like entrepreneurship is, by having a curriculum that is open to everybody, we provide a natural environment in which startup companies can flourish by creating those kinds of interactions. So my primary responsibility now is to create that curriculum, to teach some of those courses myself, to hire faculty. We have couple faculty openings. We also have part-time faculty that have returned, mostly practitioners who have been successful entrepreneurs or investors who are teaching in the classroom alongside faculty who have been here some time, who bring a more academic perspective. And I think this pairing is is wonderful in the sense that entrepreneurship obviously is something that you put into practice immediately, right? So there's a very compelling rationale for mixing theory and practice within the classroom. And so this is my life, creating the curriculum as a first responsibility. The second responsibility that I have as Director of Entrepreneurial Programs is to support our founders here at the School of Management. We have a special course called the Startup Founder Practicum, and this allows entrepreneurs at the School of Management to work on their ventures for credit, right? So entrepreneurs have a tough life. They're full-time students. They're also CEO of a new company, and that's tough to do, right? We've had some students who choose to leave and take a leave of absence and then come back, and we don't want that to happen. What we want to say to them is that this is such an awesome place to get your company started. We are going to provide you with the resources and the support necessary to keep you here to make this the best place for you to be. So we have the Startup Founder Practicum where students can make their entrepreneurial experience part of their educational experience. We have this fantastic entrepreneurial studies suite in the garden level of Evans here. Garden level is the marketing department. The garden level is how I should refer to the basement. In truth, it has a wonderful view. It looks out of the back of the building. We have in there desks for our student entrepreneurs. They are the only students that have their own desks in the whole building. So we have almost 400 people coming in an incoming class. Only the entrepreneurs have desks. It's a really fabulous thing. And I think it's a recognition that they're doing something very special. They have 24-hour swipe access to this room. There's ramen noodle out the wazoo there. They can sleep on the floor, whatever it is. It's a fantastic way for us to support startup companies coming out of the School of Management. And that's my second responsibility. My first responsibility is creating the curriculum in entrepreneurship with our other faculty here. And the second is to support those entrepreneurs who are starting companies while they are students here. And the third is to work with other entities around campus to support a culture of entrepreneurship at the School of Management and around Yale. And so for us, that really means giving people numerous opportunities to have small positive interactions, celebrating entrepreneurs, celebrating entrepreneurship, preferably in the presence of food and libations. And the hypothesis behind that is that the real value for our entrepreneurs here, the classroom is valuable. There's no doubt that the classroom is valuable, but I think the real value is when the culture of entrepreneurship here is so ubiquitous that when the student entrepreneur has some question about a nuance of a line on their term sheet, that they turn to their peer to ask them, right? And they can do that confidently instead of turning to the faculty. And I think through building culture, that's what gets us to that point, right? That the primary value add for them is going to be interacting with other founders, both here at the School of Management and around the Yale campus. So that is my life, creating the curriculum in entrepreneurship, mentoring and supporting our entrepreneurs who are founders while they're here at the School of Management, and then working to build a culture of entrepreneurship at the school. So now I would like to introduce you to my speakers here and ask them to augment what I've said here. In particular, I'm working very closely with Bridget on fostering a culture of entrepreneurship here with the Entrepreneurship Club. Bridget, I was hoping maybe you could describe to everybody what the club is and kind of what your major initiatives are this year.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. So the Entrepreneurship Club is a professional student-run club on campus, just like we have the consulting and finance clubs. I would say there are three kind of large initiatives that are driving our programming this year. The first is to get more speakers on campus and really more diverse speakers. If you look at our student body at Yale SOM, we have really diverse backgrounds, diverse interests, and we want our founders that we invite to come speak to reflect that. So whether that is industry, gender, background, we really have tried to be inclusive in thinking about who we are inviting to come speak, and we've already found that students really are engaging with these speakers who come from these very diverse backgrounds. The second really is related to what Kyle said about creating more opportunities for SOM students to connect with Yaleys outside of the School of Management and really create these kind of co-founder opportunities. We've been working with other student and professional groups across Yale undergrads, Yale Entrepreneurial Society, Innovators in Health over at the medical school, CBIT, CBA, a lot of these groups to, again, create these small positive interactions between SOM students and others with entrepreneurial interests across Yale. So we have a mixer series that we're kicking off to really enable SOMers to meet those from across campus. It's one of the best things about Yale. We have such an impressive student body, and it's a great opportunity for SOM entrepreneurs to connect with others. The last I would say is better integration with the local community with New Haven. I think a lot of people are surprised to learn that there are about 50 startups in New Haven. Some of them founded by SOM alums. Miles Lassiter of Hire One is a good example. Some not founded by Yaleys, but we really are trying to give students more of a connection to New Haven. Tonight we've invited the New Haven Lean Startup Meetup Group to campus. They're going to be facilitating a session that should be really great. They're presenting 2 quote-unquote failed startups to students. There's been a lot of excitement around that. So I would say, again, creating more opportunities for students to not only to connect with others from across Yale, but to connect with people in the New Haven community. Those are kind of the 3 big initiatives that are driving our programming this year.
That's fantastic. One of the things that you said that really resonates with me is connecting with the New Haven community, right? So if you went to Yale, you know there's a modicum of a town and gown barrier, and particularly in the area of entrepreneurship, I don't think that makes any sense, right? So our startup companies who leave the School of Management or leave Yale, a lot of them choose to stay in the area, and I think it really makes sense that they be well integrated with other founders who are here, and many of whom are working on fantastic things. And so a lot of the programming I know that, as you said, that you have through the Entrepreneurship Club this year is open to everybody, right? So it's not just, it's open to the whole campus, it's open to people who are residents of New Haven.
Absolutely.
And do you see many people?
Yes. The other thing, too, in addition to just making things open, we're actually partnering with people for new programming. So as you know, this year, for the first time, New Haven Startup Weekend and also Startup Tour is going to be a joint effort between Yale students, particularly at the School of Management, as well as some of the other groups, and locals in the community. So Startup Weekend is...
That was a powder puff question,
right.
I know the answer.
Startup Weekend takes place in a ton of cities. It's basically a 54-hour hackathon. People come, they pitch ideas, they build teams, and the idea is to launch a venture in 54 hours. Historically, I think this is the 4th year they're doing it in New Haven, but there hasn't been a ton of involvement from the school. So this is the first year where we're partnering with the local startup community, as well as SOM and some of these other student groups to make this a joint effort. The New Haven Startup Tour that we're organizing on the Friday before Startup Weekend begins is really to give people a view of all of these local startups. And rather than a conference where companies are all coming to a third-party location, we're actually going to go visit all of these offices. And that's one of the best things about being in a smaller town like New Haven. We can actually walk to a lot of these and really get to see the inside of these companies, meet the founders, meet the early employees, and really get a deep inside look at the companies that make up the New Haven startup community.
Fantastic. Okay. Jonas, I'm going to ask you some questions now. Sure. So Jonas, you are the founder of A&J. Tell us a little bit about A&J, and then I want to ask you about what you think of the new resources we have to support entrepreneurs at the School of Management, and what you ideally would like to see.
Okay. Thanks, Kyle. Yeah. So I'm Jonas. I'm part of A&J. We are a mission-driven apparel company, and we make clothes using less environmentally harmful materials and working with suppliers who adhere to fair labor standards. And so this venture got started. It was actually sort of serendipitous. We were at an event here in the fall and met the number 2, the former VP of marketing at Patagonia, and it was a brand that my co-founder and I really liked. And so we started talking with him, and we really loved how they had integrated sort of a clean supply chain and kind of the mission aspect of what they were doing kind of into the core of the brand. And so we sort of posed a question and said, hey, how come we haven't seen this in other areas of apparel outside of kind of the outdoor industry? And that led to a really productive conversation, and we kind of got off and running. And so we entered YEI, the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute. We applied for that in the winter and got that. And so we basically, once that happened, we were able to work on it through the academic year and then through the summer as well. And so we're particularly excited. Most of that was kind of putting together our supply chain, and we are launching with a Kickstarter campaign in October 22nd, with a line where we're just rolling out a single product line to start. We're doing high quality dress shirts, sort of like the one I'm wearing, made from 100% organic cotton from a mill in Italy, and it's actually, we're using a cut and sew facility right here in the U.S. in Fall River, Mass. And so we're really excited to sort of kick that off and get it going and sort of see where things go from there. A couple of other things about the venture, which I think are particularly exciting. We're the first benefit corporation out of Yale. That was really important to us. We really wanted to kind of bake the mission aspect of what we were doing kind of into the core of the brand. And that was great. I think one of the things that really attracted us to Yale SOM and why my co-founder and I, we knew each other before this, and why we came down is that we really wanted a place that we felt would be really supportive and really get the mission component of what we were trying to do. And so that's been really exciting. And so we've gotten a ton of support. And so we're ready to basically go to market this fall, which is really exciting.
Okay, so what kind of resources, as a student entrepreneur or an MBA candidate entrepreneur, would you like to see here? What do you think of the change in resources or the change in mentality, the kind of increased dedication to entrepreneurs that the school has produced in the past semester?
Yeah, I think so I think when we came down, the way that I described it is that we had a lot of great informal support. I mean, we could, when we got down, we got in touch with Barry Nailbuff and professor here and co-founder of Honest Tea, and we sort of pitched him and said, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing, and got a lot of great feedback. And we went around to lots of folks to sort of get that kind of informal feedback, outside of a course, it wasn't involved a course or didn't involve a course or sort of a formal program of any sort. And that kind of informal structure was really helpful and really supportive. But I think the thing that was missing for us was feeling like there was a really strong formal structure for entrepreneurs to kind of help provide and sort of scaffold some of the things that they need to do to actually get their ventures to market and get off and running. And so, if you look around at consulting or a lot of these other clubs, there's a fairly structured support system for kind of getting these folks where they want to go. I think that's been really big for us and for our venture. Having folks who are providing resources, but also kind of setting up structured milestones. Hey, by this date, I'd love to see the following. What can I do to help get you there? And I think that's been particularly helpful. The last piece I'll touch on is the curricular component, which I think has been a very welcome development for me. I think the startups are something where it's particularly helpful to talk to folks who have experience. So bringing in folks who have been successful and even unsuccessful, you can learn a ton from that as well. Bringing those folks into the classroom, bringing in kind of the academic literature on the topic, and sort of mashing that all together has been incredibly beneficial for us in terms of sort of thinking through where we want this thing to go and how we're going to get there. So did I answer your question?
You absolutely did. Let me ask you, are you taking any of the new entrepreneurship courses? Which ones are you taking?
Sure, yeah. I'm doing
and then I can perhaps describe what those are.
Sure. So I'm taking the Startup Founders Practicum, which is a course that's designed for founders to work on their ventures. And that's very structured. We meet with a faculty member and a few other folks throughout the course of the fall and have kind of regular milestones and support. Doing founder studies, which is the sort of the kind of the more academically focused side of that. Practicum is academically focused in some respects, but I think the founders piece really kind of brings in sort of what the literature and sort of landscape for the study of startups looks like and how that can help you think through what you need. So we were just reading a piece on equity distributions, how to use equity effectively to incentivize and motivate people who are interested and want to be part of your venture. That was incredibly helpful for us. So founder studies has been a big piece. I will be taking the venture capital, the Cromwell course that you mentioned later in the fall. What else am I taking? that's relative to my co-founder is actually taking entrepreneurial finance.
Bridget, you're taking that too, right?
Yeah,
I am.
Yeah, and Bridget.
So tell us about that course. Jonas, I think as you know, I teach those two courses that you were in, but I did not teach entrepreneurial
Right.
finance. Bridget, would you mind describing the course to us?
Absolutely. Entrepreneurial Finance is a new class being offered this fall for the first time. And like Kyle mentioned, this is one of the classes where we have a practitioner coming back who's actually an alum, Elon Baums. I believe he's class of '08, who's coming back. He is a VC. He's local to New Haven, and he is co-teaching this class with Olaf Sorensen, who has historically taught a class on venture capital. The difference with this class is that it's being taught from the perspective of the entrepreneur. So it's been a really incredible class thus far, really understanding cap tables, in and out, financial waterfalls, implications for entrepreneurs, what it looks like to have an investor who is aligned, an investor who's maybe misaligned. It's been a fantastic course, and having a practitioner teaching alongside an academic has really been a new experience for me at SOM, and it's been a fantastic course.
Excellent. I'm elated to hear that. So those are the three courses that we have that are new in the fall semester. There are 4 other courses that are new in the spring semester coming up, and I can describe those to you. The first is the foundational elective in entrepreneurship. So this is essentially Entrepreneurship 101. It is entrepreneurship in new ventures. So the course consists of lean startup methodology, or what you might call evidence-based entrepreneurship, and the nuts and bolts of starting new ventures. And so that includes everything from corporate structures to entrepreneurial law and some modicum of entrepreneurial finance and deal structure. Should be fantastic. It's open to the whole of the Yale community, and we hope to have a diverse population in there. The other courses offered in the spring semester include what I would say are some verticals, some classes in entrepreneurship that are in particular markets. So we have a course that will be cross-listed with the medical school that's being taught by new faculty there named Chris Luce and Dick Foster, who is here on the faculty of the School of Management. And the course is new ventures in healthcare and the life sciences. So obviously, when you think about the places where we can be leaders, that is, what are the areas of entrepreneurship in which Yale can be a leader? You would put healthcare and the life sciences at the top, right? So fully 50% of Yale's faculty are at the medical school. 70-some-odd% of Yale's faculty work in some way, shape, or form in the life sciences. It is a core competency for the school, and we have a huge number of startups going into that space. This is the first class we've had on entrepreneurship within healthcare and life sciences, and I think it's really important because that's a complicated market, right? It's you need to know your entrepreneurial the foundational aspects of entrepreneurship. There's a huge degree of regulation and specificity in that marketplace. So it should be wonderful. 2 other courses in verticals. One is Management of Software Development, and I have the great pleasure of co-instructing that with Miles Lassiter, who's, of course, a very successful Yale entrepreneur and was the founder of the Yale Entrepreneurial Society and Yale Entrepreneurial Institute, and has been helping Yale entrepreneurs for some years now. Miles is returning. We'll both be in the classroom together and teaching how to manage technical teams who are writing software for you. The truth is that very few Yaleys, particularly at the School of Management, are going to go off and write code for a living. A large number of them will manage persons who are writing code, and this course teaches modern philosophy of software development and management of the software development lifecycle, including, for example, Agile, XP, Scrum, all these kinds of things. It should be great. For those students who are going to leave Yale and actually go write code, we have another course in entrepreneurship, which is CS 113, Entrepreneurship and Programming, and I will be co-instructing that with Daniel Abadi, who is faculty in the Department of Computer Science. He was co-founder of Hadapt, which is a startup that came out of Yale 3 years ago. It was a joint venture between Daniel and the School of Computer Science and Justin Borgman, who was at the time an MBA candidate here at the School of Management. They went out and hit a home run, raising a good amount of venture capital, and sold the company to Teradata just this year. I am very pleased to say Justin has returned for his final semester of his MBA, so it's wonderful to have an extra experienced founder back on campus. So Daniel and I will be teaching this course, Computer Science 113, in the spring, Entrepreneurship and Programming, and the byline for the course is essentially, this is the course for Yaleys that want to create the next Facebook or Twitch or rap genius. It should be fantastic. And then there's one other course. What am I forgetting here?
Management.
That's embarrassing.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, I got them all. There was 4, yes.
Okay.
So there's 7 new courses. That's right. There are 7 new courses in entrepreneurship. So this sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. And the reason is that there was clear demand for these courses. And the fact that they're open to the whole of campus, I think, ensures that there'll be a healthy population of students within those. All of them that we've offered so far have been dramatically oversubscribed, which I think is a testament to the entrepreneurial spirit at Yale and Yale SOM. So I realize, thinking back to my introduction, that I failed to introduce myself adequately. I am one of the newer faculty members at the Yale School of Management, as I said, and I have, and I'm not kidding you, I have the best job. I have the best job at the school. I spend my day with our entrepreneurs here, meeting with them, working on their ventures, as is the case with Jonas, for example, or in the classroom with them. And I frequently tell people that by noon, I feel like that Dos Equis guy, like the most interesting man in the world, because I've heard from 20 different entrepreneurs about fantastic things that they're working on, and they're filled with energy, and they're so smart that in my capacity, I needn't have all the right answers. I just have to have pretty good questions. And so I enjoy it a great deal. And for me, it's very meaningful because I started my career as an entrepreneur when I was a student. And so and it was a very positive experience. I was an engineer, did my PhD in chemical engineering at MIT, and started my first company there. A company was making corn varieties for fuel ethanol and for animal feed. By the time I graduated, we had raised venture capital financing from Kleiner Perkins and had 10 employees. Now the company's based in Medford, a little bit further out in Boston, 50 employees, doing quite well. After that company, I left that company to follow my wife to the West Coast and ultimately to Yale, and had the great opportunity to work on 2 other software ventures. One in the intellectual property space, basically a company that helped large technology companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft understand or be alerted to new patent lawsuits against them and understand the content of those lawsuits, who is suing them, why, with what patents, which attorneys were involved. We got very lucky with that venture, and I'm happy to say it was a good exit for us. And then most recently, I have been working on a very fun venture where we have this company provides real-time analytics for professional motorsports teams. So we have hardware and software that sits in the pit box of NASCAR teams, basically, and analyzes the performance of vehicles in real time, making recommendations about what to do with the vehicle using pretty much off-the-shelf machine learning technologies. So I can't say that I'm a huge NASCAR fan, but I do have the opportunity to go to a lot of NASCAR races, and I get to sit in the pits, and it's very fun. So it's not so bad. Now, I've been here on Yale's campus for a few years, and during that time, I had the wonderful experience of being a mentor at the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute, and then entrepreneur in residence there. And so when the opportunity came to join the School of Management, be on the faculty here, and to parachute into a 300-year-old Ivy League institution that is filled with the most talented people in the world, and to help build this curriculum in entrepreneurship, to me, it seemed like very obviously the best job in the world. And so I'm happy to say that the school felt like it was a good fit, and it has been tremendously fun so far. And I hope it will continue to be fun for many years to come. I'm confident that it will. Yeah. So I think we've reached the point in the webinar where we can start taking some questions. So if you remember at the beginning of the webinar, I mentioned to you at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll notice there's a little button you can click on, and you can ask a question. You can type it in there, and I'm going to look over to the left here, and we'll page through them, and Bridget and Jonas and I will answer pretty much anything you want to talk about. So let's see here. So the first question here, what are the areas in which you think Yale can be strongest? So what are the areas of entrepreneurship, I guess, in which Yale can be strongest? I think I said one. I said healthcare and the life sciences, for sure. That's one. What would you say is a core competency for the School of Management, kind of a niche in entrepreneurship?
Well, for me, it's social enterprise. I mean, I think that's an area that sort of attracted me to the school to begin with, and I think is sort of a no-brainer. I think one of the things that's great about the school is that is the heterogeneity. I mean, we have students with so many different interests, and I think that is very conducive, I think, to a kind of a vibrant social enterprise culture. And I think that's something that is an obvious fit, and I think one where we can really where we have sort of competitive advantage in many respects.
It's a kind of a core piece of the school's history.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And not just a piece of the history, but I think continues to be a real core piece of the culture. And I think that's been one of the absolute best things about, at least about my experience here, is that is alive and well. We were here for the kickoff of the new building, and it was awesome seeing all the alums coming back, many of whom had been involved in sort of social enterprises, and so it was fun to feel that sort of sense of continuity and kind of sense of mission. It was just a great experience. So that one is is sort of a no-brainer for me.
So maybe not just leaders for business and society, but entrepreneurs for business.
Absolutely,
and society,
yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yes, fantastic. How do you think the Yale SOM entrepreneurship program will evolve over the years compared to some of your peers that have deep roots in technology entrepreneurship? Boy, that's a good question. How will it evolve? I can't say I know the answer, I would say. I know where we're going in the next year, right? And that is, there's certain things that are obvious that we need, that there's demand for among the student population. I think as well we're going to be doubling down in these concentration areas like healthcare and the life sciences or mission-driven ventures. And that's where it's going in the short term. In the long term, I don't know. I do know this, that Yale is different than those institutions. So as I said, I went to MIT, fantastic place for technology entrepreneurship. I can tell you my experience teaching at Yale is very different. I have students who are working here on everything from consumer packaged goods to business attire to financial services to some technology ventures. And so the array, I think the diversity is a little bit greater than you may find in other places. I also think that because Yale is at its core a liberal arts institution, that the kinds of entrepreneurs we breed are different, right? They are natural leaders. They are natural leaders in the sense that they're well-rounded. They're able to bring people into their vision, to recruit very effectively, and to message and to tell the world what they're working on and get them enthused about it. And so I think that's what makes Yale a special place, and I would imagine whatever direction we go in the future, it will be more towards that which, building a program that really fits with Yale's strengths. So that's my guess as to where we're going. Do you have any opinions?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add, I've said sort of my piece about the mission-driven component. I think folks who are well-rounded, like you said, is spot on. I think being a good entrepreneur often involves having sort of a wider field of vision. I think that's where you can spot and pick up opportunities and sort of make connections that could be potentially very useful and valuable. I do think there's also, for what it's worth, a lot of tech here. I just think that much of that has yet to be commercialized. We have a bunch of classmates who are working on, commercializing tech that's coming out of a number of the Yale labs. So I don't think I would go so far, even though there are folks who've been very good at that for a very long time. I think that's an area that we could continue to develop. I mean, if Justin Bergman were here, he would say with his successful venture. I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing.
So your sense is that we are under-commercializing the technologies that are regenerating on the science and engineering sides of the...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about under-commercializing. I just think that's an area of opportunity that I see in all likelihood growing. I mean, I think, the folks, we have, classmates who are working on entrepreneurial ventures that involve some really exciting technology and sort of figuring out what market does that fit in? How would we commercialize it? What kind of capital would we need to do it? Strategics, et cetera, et cetera. It's really exciting, and they're totally enthused. And so I I wouldn't want to bet against that. I think that's probably an area that would continue to grow, would be my guess.
Certainly it's something that excites particularly MBA students in the sense
Absolutely.
that there's all these faculty. So you go out to if you're an alum, you probably remember going out to the food carts to have lunch. And in all likelihood, the person next to you is some top-tier brain surgeon or scientist or engineer or whatever it is. And in their lab has been consuming federal research dollars at the rapid rate, and they have these technologies in some cases that are just sitting on the shelf waiting for an MBA student here to come along and help them find a market for it and find consumers, find where that fits in the world. And I really do feel like not only is that great for the MBA student and for the faculty in the sciences and engineering, but also it is very manifestly something that fills the mission of the university, right? So the mission of the university is to create, preserve, and disseminate knowledge. It is frequently the case that the dissemination of knowledge will happen through the commercialization of the technology that impacts people's lives, right? So if we develop something that cures cancer, it doesn't really matter if it just sits on the shelf, but instead, if we get it out there and it saves lives, that's what matters, right? So it's impact. And so I agree with you. I think that that's something that we can do more of. And I think it's something that people find universally exciting. And so I wouldn't bet against it either. I would bet for it.
Would.
That's right. Let's see here. So the financial cost of an MBA can really constrain one's graduation plans. Is the entrepreneurship program structured so that students can develop a foundation that can be put to use later in one's career? The answer is yes. So there's a few things related to this. So what is the implication for, let's say, educational financing on entrepreneurship or for entrepreneurship? And I have two answers. And one is that we are the first school that has ever developed a program, a loan forgiveness program for our entrepreneurs. Not loan forgiveness, loan deferral. Thank you. We have 5 fellowships for graduating entrepreneurs in which the school issues new debt to these graduating entrepreneurs and ensures that they are not making a payment on their educational debt for 2 years and their principal doesn't grow at all. And so basically that gives us as the faculty the ability to say to a student, look, now is the time in your life where you can go out and you can do bold and crazy things. And here the school is going to step up and ensure that financially, if this is t equals 0, that at t equals 2, you're at the same place. Nothing has changed, right? And so it gives you this breathing space in which you can go out and do crazy things. And I'm really proud of that. And I think it's the first program of its kind. And I also think that if it is something that the students value and find meaningful, that we would like to expand that greatly. The second part of that answer is that we're not dogmatic about starting a venture while you're here on campus. So I think because of how sexy it is, it's easy to get lost and kind of young entrepreneur starts technology venture, goes out and raises a ton of money and has a $1 billion exit. The truth is that if you're a large corporation, GE, IBM, Microsoft, whoever you are, you want to hire entrepreneurial people. And so because for these large corporations, right, it's innovate or perish. And for our students who are here, their experience either taking courses in entrepreneurship or starting their own venture while they're here, which may not pan out. These are incredibly valuable things that make them much more attractive candidates, I think, to people who are hiring, because everyone wants to hire. Everyone wants someone in their company who is entrepreneurial. And so for us, this is a totally valid outcome. I mean, I feel I feel wonderful if someone goes out and makes a change in a large corporation or starts a nonprofit or goes into government and is an entrepreneur doing innovative things. This is a totally acceptable outcome, I think, for me and is equally valid to the student who starts a technology venture while they're here on campus. So through what channels can MBA candidates connect with technical co-founders at Yale? That's a good one. That's a classic conundrum.
Do you want to take it? Or?
Bridget, that's right.
I can start with this, right. So I think it's sort of a common stereotype that MBAs are always looking for a technical co-founder. I would say as a population, most of us don't have a lot of those technical skills, even though more and more students are beginning to take classes in the computer science department, like the ones that Kyle was mentioning earlier. I think what we're trying to do now in partnership with the program as a club is really just build more organic links with a lot of these other groups on campus. So whether that be the Yale Entrepreneurial Society that is an undergraduate group, or Innovators in Health, which is a graduate group in the medical school. It's not to say that they all necessarily have technical skills. A lot of them do, a lot of them might not. And I think also not every venture coming out of here is a technology venture at its core. Yes, you need a website, but not everyone needs the really, really deep technical skills that a technology venture might. And maybe Jonas, you have kind of thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think that we're not a tech sort of a tech play at this point, although there is some interesting sort of material science stuff that we are definitely interested in. It's more of a bandwidth issue at this point that we don't, that's sort of further on down the road. But I think of the folks that I sort of hang around with in the entrepreneurial sort of ecosystem, a lot of it happens sort of serendipitously. I mean, I think that's one great benefit of not having your business school partitioned across the river from other the rest of the university. I think it's nice to have a sort of a campus that's very close to the rest of the sort of broader ecosystem, and it's really nice to be able to take classes. That's something that Yale definitely take classes sort of outside of your home school. That's something that Yale's been very encouraging of, and which I think fosters those kinds of, interactions where something might emerge. I had a friend who, came across a really interesting technology and sort of hit it off with somebody at a local bar when they were having a drink, and ended up, being something that they went out and kind of worked on for a good stretch. And so, I think my own view is that a lot of there's the sort of the more sort of formal structural ways to kind of connect technical folks with sort of business BD. What did Paul Graham, the hacker and the hustler, sort of Paul Graham thing. I think so. There are formal ways that happens, and I think the informal ways are just as powerful in terms of making those kinds of connections. So. I don't know. I guess that's a long-winded way of saying that I think just sort of general school cohesion is probably one of the best best ways that happens, and you sort of see it all the time. I don't know if I answered the
I think so. I think it comes down to, as you say, the kind of organic connections that are made, and it is the case that the Yale School of Management is incredibly well integrated with its home school. We have these, particularly in the area of entrepreneurship, right, where we have these courses that are open to everybody. I think those connections do happen organically, and certainly with the work you're doing, Bridget, and with the Entrepreneurship Club, where these are open, and that's the case for all the organizations that are doing things related to entrepreneurship on campus. So whether that's the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute or anybody else, generally those are wonderful mixing pots where I think our, let's say, kind of canonical MBA management talent student has the opportunity to meet those more technically minded founders.
And I think more and more to develop some of those skills, maybe not in the depth, of course, that one needs to be a sort of a serious technical co-founder, but I think with some of the things that Bridget's been spearheading, the tech boot camp through YI was amazing this summer. So there are a lot of opportunities for people who don't necessarily have a technical background to get just enough technical skills to figure out kind of where they're, being an entrepreneur is about being sort of 90% sort of good enough in lots of different areas. And I feel like tech is one of those areas where folks, there are more opportunities for folks to get sort of good enough to kind of get the ball rolling, which I think is sort of as it should be. And
Bridget,
then you can go out.
Bridget, you're taking the
That's right, yeah, you're taking
computer science course, right?
Yeah, I'm taking Computer Science 112. There's 3 other MBAs in that class, and it's the prerequisite to the class in the spring, the CS 113 Tech and Entrepreneurship class. It is majority undergrads, but it's been awesome so far, as Kyle mentioned.
It's a new skill set for you.
A completely new skill set for me. Yeah, absolutely. We're learning Java. We had to build a snake for our last assignment. But it's been great so far. And I think it's exciting. I think this is the first time that sort of a cohort of SOM students has gone down to the engineering building and taken this class together, and we're all working on the project together. So it's been a very cool experience, and I hope the number of MBAs that choose to take that class in the future continues to grow.
Fantastic. So here's a question that people ask all the time, particularly incoming students. Do our entrepreneurs have ideas when they come into school, or do they find ideas here? Jonas, what did you? When did you come up with the idea?
So we had my co-founder and I. We sort of came down to school together. So we had and sort of knew we wanted to launch a mission-driven venture. So we were very much in the kind of heavy ideation stage over the summer, and we came in, with probably 10 or 12 things that we were kind of interested in kicking the tires on. So, and actually, that's one of the big pieces of advice I have for people. You don't necessarily have to go or come in knowing, having sort of that great idea that is going to be a winner. But it's helpful to come in with at least a small handful of things that you're particularly excited about. And so we were kind of working through that, and I'm sort of figuring out which of the ones we wanted to pursue. And then we had this sort of really good interaction with the guest speaker that I had mentioned before. And so that was kind of the catalyst for kind of being off and running. I think, the reality is that the ideas change so much, even especially early on, as they sort of evolve and grow. So I think, having a sort of a short list is really helpful. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world.
Bridget, I think you're addressing that problem.
Yeah.
Right. So for alums that have been out for a few years, I think our largest club on campus is now the Design and Innovation Club, which didn't even exist 3 years ago. They do a ton of amazing curriculum and programming around design thinking and ideation, and particularly in the fall, because for first years you don't take the innovator part of the core until the spring. Right. So 2 years is not a lot of runway to come in with no idea, come up with something and get it off the ground. If you compare that to undergrads or PhDs that are looking at 4, 5, 6 years on campus, it's a much shorter period of time. So we've been working really hard to kind of help people through that process. And to Jonas's point, I think not even having a group of ideas necessarily, but we've asked people, what's a problem you'd like to solve? Sure. Think of it kind of broadly in that way, from more of a problem-solving approach rather than I have this specific product or service idea. Come with something that you're passionate about, and then we, in conjunction with the Design and Innovation Club and other groups, will help give you the tools to really think through that.
As well, I think you have some events coming up around founder dating, essentially finding the right person maybe before you find the right idea. Right. Is that right? Right,
that as well. So in addition to these kind of ideation sessions, we are kicking off our Mixer series with groups from across Yale. So our first one will be October 10th. It's going to be a healthcare and sort of two verticals at the same time, healthcare and environment. I'm sure a lot of you know that SOM has a ton of joint degrees with the forestry school. And we're also coordinating with Innovators in Health, which is a group in the medical and engineering schools. So I think giving people opportunities to work on their ideas, as well as meet other people that sort of broadly share the same interests and have the same passion for solving problems in a particular vertical, kind of creates a lot of opportunities.
What are the possible global opportunities that the Yale School of Management entrepreneurship program might offer? This is an interesting question because, of course, Yale, if you look at the spectrum of schools of management, Yale is the most international business school I think you'll find in the United States. We have a variety of degree programs that cater particularly to international students. And I think 54% of maybe our class is international.
Something
right?
like that.
And the hypothesis there, or not hypothesis, the reality of the situation is when that you're looking at a global talent pool. That's a great talent pool, right? And so we find the best people no matter where they are. Now, in case of entrepreneurship, we have a number of students who are working on ventures that either they're foreign entrepreneurs who have come here and are starting a venture here, or they are entrepreneurs here or foreign who are working on a venture whose primary market is elsewhere. We had a couple last year, just off the top of my head, one creating some web service for printing customized T-shirts in Mexico, and one who was in the Entrepreneurial Studies Suite over the summer that we hosted, creating a private equity search fund for the Dominican Republic. And so I think they're both international entrepreneurs. And we also, random ones was that we had a tile company in Nepal a lot of international ventures, essentially.
Yeah.
We are also leveraging, of course, Yale's global network. So Yale is part of the Global Network for Advanced Management, which is a consortium of schools that participate together in educational programs. We have students from the global network come here. We send our students to other schools in the global network. And there's a very tight collaboration. And I think there's a particular opportunities in the area of entrepreneurship, taking students to other countries to see business models there, to understand what works in other countries, what may work here, what can be exported, what can be exchanged, what are the different norms and opportunities, I think, across borders. So I think Yale is uniquely positioned, I think, to support students who have an international component to their entrepreneurial interests.
Incredibly useful. I mean, we, just in our supply chain, we were looking at a fabric mill in Italy, and we happened to have a classmate who's like, "Oh, I know someone who used to work there." I mean, it works.
We used to work there.
Yeah, so it even works the other direction. That it's the sort of global nature of the school ends up being really helpful in a lot of very concrete ways for entrepreneurs.
It's rare that a business does not touch something international now, right?
Exactly right.
Yes,
right.
Indeed so. I've been through so many of these. I'm looking for some really excellent ones here. I apologize for my delay. Are there many venture capitalists in the area? And what is the access to capital that you have at Yale? This, I think, is an area that has improved dramatically in recent years. So as you probably know, Yale is adjacent to New York City. We're just southwest of Boston. So both of those obviously have a very large number of venture capital firms as well. We are just a few minutes away from Greenwich, which is the hedge fund epicenter of the world. So access to capital, particularly as it pertains to angel investors, I don't think has ever been a problem for students here. As well, there's an increasing within the Yale community, and this is kind of a niche thing, but there's a number of investment groups that invest solely in Yale Ventures, and those include alumni groups, but as well the Yale Entrepreneurship Fund now, or Yale Entrepreneurial Institute has an innovation fund right now, and they're making investments into Yale Ventures, particularly those that are capital intensive and predicated on some kind of Yale-owned intellectual property. Suffice to say that there is, I think, very good access to capital, and of course with the disruption of venture capital, particularly seed stage financing now, I think geography is less of a hindrance than it ever has been before, in the sense that investors are more highly discoverable, and there's a great deal of transparency that I think was not present in the past. Oh, okay. Oh, how do you deal with the tension between studying and your venture?
Carefully, I think, is the answer. I mean, I think that's definitely been a challenge in terms of, you're taking the time away from your career and you're putting, a lot of work and time and energy into a venture, but you're also in business school and you actually want to be getting the most out of that opportunity and kind of, sponging up as much knowledge in the classroom as you can. And so I have yet to find a sort of there's no sort of silver bullet to that. I think the best thing is that working on a venture in many ways helps you really zero in on the things that are most helpful for you in the classroom. So, I had been out of school for quite a few years before coming back and starting the core, and all of a sudden I'm back taking micro again, and I was like, man, I am way out of practice. But going through that and then taking competitive strategy in the spring, it was incredibly helpful for understanding kind of your market structure and where the areas where you can differentiate and all of the sort of kind of really core sort of business school skills, I think have been incredibly helpful for the venture. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of doing the best you can. I think it's definitely a difficult challenge.
And now you can take, of course, the Startup Founder Practicum, which helps.
Which has been huge, yeah, which has been huge. And the fall has been, I think, much better in that respect in terms of being able to balance it. But I think, you're going to find that wherever you go. I think being an entrepreneur means figuring out how to make the most of the non-entrepreneurial parts of your life, whether that's, personal life or class or, extracurricular endeavors. And I think it's also a very kind of personal thing for an entrepreneur. You have to sort of figure out what your priority is and kind of where you want to spend most of your time. So that's a not helpful and sort of squishy answer to a very, very good question.
Here's a question here. What is the relationship of the school with Yale Office of Cooperative Research, and do you see partnering with OCR as a viable pathway to creating startups? The answer to that is an emphatic yes. So if you are not part of the Yale community, OCR is essentially the technology licensing wing of the university, in charge of ensuring that those things that are invented at the university make their way into the world where they can impact lives and fulfillment of the university's mission. And we have a huge number of entrepreneurs at the School of Management who work with faculty and staff at the school, and essentially obtain a license to use technology that was invented at Yale. And that license to, for example, some piece of formal intellectual property like a patent would allow them to create barriers to entry in the companies that they go off and start. So frequently, for example, we have a student, Justin Borgman, who I said was founder of Hadapt with Daniel Abadi in the computer science department. Their intellectual property pertained to methods to make MapReduce queries similar to SQL, essentially, which saves developer time. And we're able to build a successful company on this. So emphatically, yes, that our students are always in search of complementary Yale faculty who are in search of management talent in order to commercialize technologies that are produced at the university here. So here's another one. Are there opportunities for alumni to directly assist? Yes, there are.
Yes, can I give my email out on this?
I think so. There's a variety of mechanisms, and I can enumerate a few very fast, and then we'll probably get to the point where we'll summarize the webinar and conclude here. First is that huge number of startups at the School of Management, many of whom would like to be in touch with alums, particularly who are in their particular marketplace. So Jonas obviously would like to be in touch with any alum, I assume, who's in the textiles industry. And so the opportunity for mentorship, I think, is ubiquitous, omnipresent, is always there, and you need only email to find someone with whom you can work. I think there's other opportunities as well. I think that, for example, we have a number of scholarships and fellowships that we give out to student entrepreneurs. We have these scholarships that are supported very generously from certain alums that support student entrepreneurs to work on their ventures, for example, over the summer or post-graduation. Our philosophy as the faculty and the staff who are administering these programs is that we will never sit on panels that award those fellowships. And the reason is that I want an entrepreneur to be able to come to us and say, my company is falling apart, or I have this problem at home, and I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. And I do not want the following week for that entrepreneur to come in and say, would you please give me a fellowship? And so we have these panels of alumni who sit and review those applications for us, right? So there's an arm's length relationship between, that's not the right way of phrasing it. So that I may be, and that our faculty may be honest brokers for our entrepreneurs, that we may always be there for them pedagogically and in support of them without any conflict of interest. And so if you are an alum who would like to sit on a panel like that, please get in touch with me. I'm sure my email address is easy to find. It's probably on the title slide of this webinar, because the opportunities to participate in that fashion, I think, are very common, and there's numerous other opportunities.
I will say, if I can just interject briefly, Kyle, I will say that the SOM alumni SOM alumni community has been incredibly responsive, like when we've reached out for things. But I think one thing that would be great is if people have kind of expertise or want to help out, to have some kind of inbound way for them to get in touch with the student teams who are working on things would be fantastic. So I would definitely encourage that more than high likelihood that if there's a student team that's working on something and if you have expertise, that they would love to hear from you. So alums who are watching, I would definitely encourage that.
Excellent. And the Entrepreneurship Club has many alum speakers,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. We love inviting alums to come speak, to meet students. For anyone that is local to the area or that travels to New York for work, which is most people, we would love to have you on campus. We have, I think, lined up 12 speakers for this fall, which is the most that we've ever had. We've had 2 already. We have 2 tomorrow. So if there are alums that are interested in coming to speak to our student group on campus, we would always love to have you. We have 2 speakers tomorrow.
Wow, okay, fantastic. So we are approaching the end of the webinar, and I want to say that I sincerely appreciate you joining us so that we have this opportunity to discuss with you the many fantastic things that are going on at the Yale School of Management in the area of entrepreneurship. As you can see, for us, it is a fantastic time. For me, very personally, I feel like I have the best job in the world. We are, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, greatly expanding the curriculum in entrepreneurship, creating a curriculum that is open to the whole of the Yale community. We are creating resources here at the School of Management to support our student entrepreneurs while they're here. And finally, we are creating resources that with other entities on campus like the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute and Innovate Health and CBA and all these other groups that foster a culture of entrepreneurship here and ensure that it is self-perpetuating in the absence of all these other programs, that it's something that students are thinking about and talking about on a daily basis. Thank you very much for joining us today.